So your velocity session description says, quote, the number one question we're asked at parties is what's in your stack. So what is in your stack?
So if you asked that question about 6 months ago, this interview would take about an hour. But now we took some time and we really simplified the whole stack. And now at this point, we have MySQL, Memcache, and Redis for our main data storing caching. We're a big Python house. We have a couple other technologies that have really survived the onslaught, and so that's like we use Kafka heavily, we use Puppet heavily, we use EMR from Amazon for mining data, and we use WebSolar for our search.
So what are the biggest performance issues that you're facing these days?
So some of the biggest performance issues we faced around 6 months back was like the database. Like we couldn't fit all of our data in a single database, so we took the time to actually partition the data across a sharded infrastructure. It took like a good 4 months to move all of our code from the old to the new infrastructure. And some of the new problems we are facing, now there's a huge spike in the traffic. We're not comfortable throwing boxes at the problem because we have so many servers, and like every server is making a lot of connections to Memcache and MySQL. And once the connection limits are hit, we don't know what the predictable performance of Memcache will be. They start swapping and there's a huge load to incur. So those are the biggest performance issues we're facing, and we are leveraging towards service-oriented architecture in the future. So that's what. But I would say the biggest performance issue we have is like scaling the number of employees.
Right.
We want Pintrest to be a great place to work.
Right.
We want to set up a great culture and move fast as fast as possible. So that is our biggest problem.
It is. It's a performance issue. Absolutely. What do you think the risks are of relying on something like EC2? I mean, it's such an essential part of the startup ecosystem now. I mean, is there a downside to that?
So there's ups and downs. You don't get all the toys you could if you were in a data center. You don't get SSDs. You can't have 256 gigs of RAM. But on the other hand, EC2, I can bring up a box in a second. So when you're like us and you're growing so fast and you need more Memcache and you need it now, it's invaluable. So we don't have to capacity plan too far out. If we need another box, we bring it up now and we're good to go. So that really outweighs any of the risks. I mean, we do have problems of shared resources, so sometimes someone is doing something on a box and it brings it down, so we have to swap. But that's actually good because it means that we engineer it for the lowest common denominator.
Now, did you anticipate that Pinterest was going to have the type of growth that it did? And I've got a follow-up to that as well. So let's go with that one first, and then I'll throw in the follow-up.
So I was like the first employee at Pinterest, so I did not anticipate it to grow as fast as it was. So like most of my time, I was always like involved in the product and like building up the features and like, here's what like it should be tweaking. So the follow model and all, like we just worked a lot on the follow model and make it like as seamless as possible. But I never like thought it's gonna like blow up as fast as it did. And like once it blew up, we were like, oh my god, what are we gonna do to make the site up? And, like that's what happened. Like we just had to like work a lot to make it up.
And I was a second, and when I came in, and the product was just barely done. I guess like the very basics of it, but nobody really knew about the site yet. Just a few people. And the thing that caught my eye, this was early January 2011. 2011? Yeah, that's right. The thing that caught my eye was that everybody who tweeted, when it was rare that anybody would tweet about Pinterest, but when they did, they were really passionate about it. And I saw the site, it was simple, it was beautiful, and it was something that was lacking. There was Google for search, Facebook for your friends, Twitter for kind of updates on what you're doing, but there's no discovery. So I felt like there was something missing. And then my wife was like, you have to join now. So, so yeah, so second engineer, and then it exploded right from that point on. So from that day on, we were not sleeping.
So that's my follow-up, though. So you've mentioned that you had, it sounds like you took a step back, right? You surveyed the success that you were having, the scale issues that maybe you were running into, and you took that step back and built correctly. Is that right? Do I have that right, that you had a moment where you said, we're going to have to change how we're doing this?
We had lots of those moments. So we tried a lot of things. There's a lot of promises out there. There's a lot of people coming to you say, try our technology, it'll just work. And you try a lot of technologies and a lot of them don't work. And that's when around September last year, everything we had was on fire and we had a lot of technologies. And that's when we stopped and we said, it's time to change it all. And we started on pencil and paper and just did it right.
Right. So last question I have for you. Do you feel that downtime is just a fact of life for a popular, maturing platform? I mean, there's this notion of, well, we'll never have it, we'll get through that, it'll never occur. But is it better to just look and say, look, if you're going to have massive success and massive popularity, there's probably going to be a little window at least where it's not quite working.
Yeah, it really is, and there's two kinds of downtime. There's expected downtime, which yes, you will have some of that, but there's unplanned downtime, and it will happen. And you just have to set expectations right with your users and with your, the people who are doing business. And the problem is, Pinterest was growing, doubling every month and a half, and when you're growing that fast, whatever you've just fixed is only going to last you another 5 or 10% of. For growth. Something else is going to break in another 2 days, and it'll be new, and it'll be something unexpected. And even if you do load pushing to simulate that, what it might look like if you were to double, it just never seems to actually match. Right? It's just not the same. And then we only had 2 guys for a long time, so we just didn't have time to do that. We were just trying to fix what was broken today.
Right.
So, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, every startup has to build their product as fast because there's competition out there. You got to build and deliver as fast. So when you're building things fast, you just don't know what's gonna break. You just have to wait for it to break and then be. So sometimes things just get out of control. So there's always downtime. So there's no magic. You can't get high availability and capacity planning on day one. So I think downtime is pretty common.
Just kind of accept it, right? That it's going to happen. It's how you respond to it that really is what matters.
Just plan for the disaster.
Sure.
But we also had a great couple people doing, one of our founders, Ben Silverman, and our community manager at the time, who's still with us, Enid Huang, just really good with working with the people and saying, we'll be back up, and everybody was so excited. That was one great thing. The people who use Pinterest love us so much that they thanked us when we were back up, and we're like, it was our fault we were down, but thank you for staying with us. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, thanks so much for swinging by. I appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you.